My name is Anissa Dwi Maharani. You can call me Anissa. My student ID number is 250000 4025. And for my sixth video, I will be reading this news from Jessie Young again. She uploaded on CNA World. And she just uploaded this news like 39 minutes ago, so I'm early here. The title is There is Freedom. Why Asian women are leaving their husbands in their 50s and 60s. Okay. Eiko Toyama had waited 32 years to leave her husband. Through the marriage, she says she did all the housework and childcare in their Japan house, as well as supporting the family financially. Her husband wants to control everything from her social life to professional ambition, leaving her feeling trapped and miserable. Still, she stuck it out for their two children. That finally changed when she turned 60. Her adult sons no longer need her, and her husband was healthy, not yet so old that he need a caretaker. It was a precious window of opportunity, and she took it. I was nothing but happy after the divorce. That was my only emotions, she said. I was so happy I want to run around all over the place. Stories like her are increasingly common around the world as the number of gray divorce split among couples aged 5 and older rise each year. The trend has been seen in countries like United States and everywhere else, but takes on particular significance in Asia, where people generally live longer. Many Many places like South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and mainland China are battling demographic crisis as birth rates fall and elderly population as well. The surge of gray divorce are also often driven by women who has long faced restrictive gender norms in conservative Asian society, as well as legal, financial, and social barriers to seeking divorce. That is how changing in Japan, for instance, among couples splitting after decades of marriage. Twice as many women as men filed for divorce in 2024. This could reshape what Asian elderly population look like in the coming decades. More people living alone and require more welfare support, as experts have predicted, but also perhaps more empowered to step out on their own. For women like Toyama, growing up in the 1960s and 70s, divorce was uncommon and often met with judgment and shame. Back then, if you were a woman, getting divorced was kind of like the end of your life, said Sang-yu Park, as associate professor of sociology at Washburn University in Kansas, who wrote a 2023 paper on late life divorce in South Korea. That began changing in the second half of the 20th century, that more women joining the workforce and pursued higher education. Gray divorce have risen steadily, particularly as Gen X began entering its 15 in the past decade, Park says. That is important demographic. Born between 1965 and 1918, Gen X was the first generation to grow up in a globalizing Asia, watching American TV and movie through pop culture, and also absorbed American values such as prioritizing personal choice rather than family obligation, which alongside those broader economic factors helped gradually shift attitude toward divorce, Park says. That reflect in data around the region. In South Korea last year, the number of divorces among couples who has been married at least 20 years surpasses divorce among younger couples who were married less than 5 years for the first time ever. Taiwan has also seen divorce increase among long marriage couples. According to government data in Hong Kong, multiple law firms has described a surge in gray divorce. In mainland, the number of elderly divorce has doubled in the past 13 years. Part of this might be demographic, and NG society has been bigger pool of older people, so it will have more older divorce too. Younger people are waiting married less this day, so their divorce are also fewer. But legal reforms have also made a huge difference, creating life nets for women who previously had to depend on their husband's livelihood. For instance, South Korea ruled in 2014 that future pensions and severance pay could be included in the division of assets. That means if a housewife handle out the housework and childcare during their marriage, thus allowing her husband to work, she is entitled to part of his elderly pension after getting divorced. Japan introduced a similar reform in 2007. This measurement is especially critical given the high rates of elderly poverty in Asia. Among OECD nations, South Korea has the highest poverty rate for people over 65. Hong Kong, not an OECD member, is similarly high, while Japan, ranks slightly lower, is still above the global average. And that deep gender inequality still persists despite these reforms. For women in particular, the main reason they can get a divorce is the inability to be financially independent, said Toyama. Pointing to a lower wage for women in Japan, once a woman becomes a full-time homemaker, it's very hard to leave her husband and become independent. My two children are boys, but if I had a daughter, I will constantly tell her, no matter what happens, never quit your job, she added. The biggest common factor across Asia is longevity, Park said, and how people are thinking differently about the final part of their life. Having an extra 20 or 30 years creates a new expectation, with people more willing to walk away from unhappy or unfulfilled marriage. She said, divorce is not a failure anymore. Rather, it's something new, and it's a beginning to a new chapter of life. Iman Lau, 50, experienced this rebirth firsthand. Growing up in Hong Kong, her expectations for marriage were less than inspiring. Spouse it together, do activities together, and share blendly peaceful life. That's what she thought. This is just how marriage is. That mentality stayed even through many years of infidelity of her husband. She would wonder, had she done something wrong? Was she not good enough? She was ultimately the one to initiate the divorce despite her pleas to stay together. He even compared her to a bird who refused to fly out of an open cage. Aduh. I am a pretty traditional woman. She said. In my whole life, I never thought that I would get divorced. It was a shock as he lost a limb or an organ, but it also made her realize that somewhere in that 14 years marriage, she lost her sense of self, neglecting her friends and interest to simply orbit around him, she said. She vowed to change that this year after finalizing the divorce and threw herself into a world with determined vigor. She joined an online meetup group, made new friends. She discovered love for the outdoors, going hiking, swimming, kayaking, and snorkeling. She learned to play a piano, and she loved jazz. That she just realized after she divorced. After traveling across Europe, she printed and hung up a holiday photo in her apartment. It her happy world to remind her the joy she found trekking across Sicily and camping in Georgia. I didn't know that life by yourself can be so spectacular, she said. Toyama embarked a similar journey, describing herself as a full of life at 63. She began to live stream on TikTok, create an account and messaging app to dole out advice for people who call and teach each week. She worked to launch new business ventures including a marriage agency and a life events company. For 32 years, I couldn't do anything. But now I'm finally in my third year of being able to do whatever I want. She said, the process wasn't easy, but any challenges now are still much better than the anxiety of being with my ex husband. She said, above all, there is a freedom. That's all. Thank you for reading uh, my English phonetic and phonologist video. It's already 11 minutes. Bye bye.